Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday the 24th. I'm feeling a little under the weather. I don't know if you can tell in my voice or whatnot, but my throat, I guess last night, well, let's just go back a little bit. Yesterday evening, when I got home from work, I was feeling a little icky. My nose was really irritated, and I can tell that it wasn't coming forward, like draining out my nose. It was actually draining down the back of my throat, and it was causing me to have like dry coughs and well, not really dry coughs, just coughing. Let's just say it that way, something like that. Um, so this morning I woke up and I'm like, okay, I need to be drinking hot tea, hot beverages, and something that will help basically get rid of the mucus in the back of my throat besides medication, because I don't think I have any Mucinex. So I'm just going old school, hot tea with honey, and probably later on for lunch or later on this evening, I'll probably have basically I take a can of chili and I add extra chili powder and some cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper and a few other different spices, and mix it into the chili, and then eat that with like scoops. That way, between the burning of the chili and the crunchy particles of the chips of the scoops, will help burn away, scratch away the mucus that's gotten into my throat area right around here. That in fact, I'll probably end up taking Vicks and like literally lathering down after I shave my throat region. Lather down my throat and my upper chest with Vicks, because that always works. That in fact, I know Jerry's gonna probably be a little over warm, but put my vaporizer on with Vicks inhalant in that. Usually that works on allergies. If it's not allergies, it's something worse. I'll know within the next 24 to 48 hours. Unfortunately, I probably won't know until after I go to work Monday morning. And I just hope it's something I can work through, because Monday is my day to basically come in at 12. Debbie will leave shortly after I get there, and I'll have to work the rest of the day with Patsy, who does not know the board. She doesn't know how to do the board, so I'm going to be the one doing on the board. And if I realize that I'm sick and not allergenic, I don't want to be around people, let alone their food. So, yeah. One of the other things I did yesterday that I'm going to correct today, because I realized I messed up, was I started to do a Bible read from Mark chapter 3, verses 5 and 10, and I messed up. One, I put 10 in 5's place because I thought that was 5, and then I looked at it and went, no, something's wrong. And I checked the Bible and I went, oh, no, yeah, that was verse 10, not verse 5 that I read. So so I'm going to read Mark 3, 5 and 10 to make the correction, because I goofed. It's a combination of yesterday I was really excited because the day was really, it was a really interesting day. Busy, but interesting. In fact, I just contacted one of my crew members who I have their phone number for. Well, I have everybody's phone number, but this particular crew member and I communicate a lot, just so we know what's going on around in the store. So I contacted them this morning, and I was told that it was very slow. For a Sunday, that's unusual, but because of the overcast weather, the threats of rain, and just it's 41 degrees, basically. So I assumed because of the weather, a lot of people will not go into Dickies. Then the fact that since it's past 12:30, that's usually between 11:30 and 1. We usually get a lunch rush from the church crowds, but not today. Then the factor Saturday and Sunday we usually get a rush of people from the bowling alley, which is right next door to us. So if that's not happening, yeah, people are either A, don't have money, B, don't want to be out in the weather because it looks like it could rain at any time now, or C, just don't have, just have other things to do, better, more important things to deal with. Being we are entering the last week of the month, a lot of people get, a lot of the retirement people, the old folks that live in Rolla or around Rolla, get stuff, they're like my mom. My mom gets a government subsidy check from retirement. And I don't even call it a subsidy check. I call it a retirement check. And then she also gets the government retirement check from my dad's years of service. She still gets that until the day she dies. A veteran's wife has the privilege. I don't know if I want to call it privilege or the earned income from just being a military spouse. But either way, it's that time of the month where people are getting their retirement checks, their government benefit checks. So it's that for the retirees and those who get government checks for whatever reason. It's that time of the year or time of the month, year, whatever. But today is also going to be the day that I'm planning on, just because of this, I'm going to try to rest and take care of myself. There are things around the house that I'm responsible for, and Jerry helps me with, like the laundry. But Jerry wanted to do some keto-friendly baked goods, so she has snack foods that are healthy for her, that won't spike her blood sugar or cause any other negative issues. Honestly, it's better than going out and buying a bunch of Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and Chips Ahoy or Oreos or any processed stuff. And if I'm feeling better, depending on how I'm feeling with all the stuff that we've already got planned, I want to try to start doing stuff around the house. It is almost February and my Christmas stuff is still up. But there's at least 2 or 3 houses in my neighborhood that still have their Christmas stuff up. So I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm the bum or the lazy person of the neighborhood. And I'm not even calling it laziness. I'm just saying, between work and just not feeling good and other things that are on my mind, I forget about doing the Christmas decor. My next day off will be next Friday. Basically, this week is a repeat schedule of last week's because nobody basically came in to redo the schedule, and I found out yesterday that Debbie has given Lisa the go ahead and all the information on how to get onto the computer to redo the schedule. So next week's schedule is hopefully going to be a little bit different. I overheard conversations between Debbie and Lisa. Granted, Debbie was on the phone, but I heard enough through Lisa to know that certain things are going to happen. And one of those things is our problem children are going to get less hours. It sucks, but just maybe, they'll learn their lesson and get with the program kind of thing. But I don't worry about that. I just sit there and go whatever hours I get. Hopefully I get 30, maybe a little bit more than 30. I'll do them. I'd love to get, hate the idea of getting only 5 hours a day, but if I get, no, I have to get 6 hours a day to get 30 hours in a week if I only have 2 days off. I'm trying to think here. If I could work 4 days at 7 hours, that's a little bit more than 30 hours a week. I would do that, but there are certain things that we don't know about because there's one of our workers that's out. We don't know if he's returning or not because we're waiting for a phone call saying that he can come back to work, but he's been out for going on 3 weeks, which is over 14 days, because his mom, his roommate, and his girlfriend all came down with corona, and they all live up near St. Louis. And I'm like, okay, so you quarantine for 14 days. And after that 14 days, if your test came back positive, you're going to have to take longer. I don't know if he's called to say I can come back or not. So right now he's off the schedule until further notice, which is one of the reasons why I have so many days and so many hours lately. I'm just glad that I'm making $10.30 an hour now. That is our local minimum wage. I heard rumors, but I'm not gonna hold anybody to any rumors. In fact, I take rumors with a grain of salt. That they're trying to push the minimum wage up another $2 or $3. They're talking about trying to get it up to almost 13, 14 bucks, and I'm like, I don't know if that's going to happen here in small town Missouri, but it might happen in like St. Louis or some of the bigger cities where people need more money for just cost of living. Now, the one thing I'm concerned about, and yes, I am concerned about it, is how is that going to reflect on the factor that if we're getting more money per hour due to that minimum wage increase, how's that going to affect the income tax or taxes in general? Because I have noticed that our prices for gas is going up. And I know a lot of people are blaming it because of the Keystone Pipeline, but what people don't realize is, one, the Keystone Pipeline goes through Native American lands, goes through a water system on Native American lands that basically is their water source up there in the Dakotas. Now, I also learned that the Keystone Pipeline is not American oil coming from Alaska. That's Canadian oil that there was an agreement made by, I don't know if it was Trump's administration or Obama's administration, to basically build a pipeline from Canada through the United States of America, including Dakota lands, which was given to the Sioux Indians, a treaty that was agreed upon by one of our presidents, that this was going to be their land to do with as they please. And all of a sudden we're trying to build a pipeline through their lands that we had a binding treaty with, just so Canada can get their oil down to the Gulf Coast and shipped out. Reroute. I'm not saying don't pipe oil through the United States, but reroute it. First off, reroute it so it's not going through Native American lands. Second off, if for some reason the pipeline springs a leak or something like that, Canada, I'm hoping Canada will pay for the cleanup, because I watched the videos with the Alaskan Exxon Valdez that basically crashed and basically spilled oil all over the Alaskan coastline. That's some nasty stuff to clean up in the ocean waters. Besides that, trying to save marine life and various birds and whatnot that got coated in that stuff. Um, can you imagine what would happen if that happen on land, and instead of having to deal with a oil spill cleanup, you had to deal with a fire? And not just the fire and how much it would burn up, but the factor if it didn't catch fire, the cleanup process, the poisoning of the land, and the animals, and the environment. No, thank you. No. Um, Personally, I would like to see all fossil fuels stop being used. We've got enough knowledge and technology to create vehicles like the Tesla and the Prius. Even though the Prius does use some gas, but they're coming up with a newer version of the Prius that is all electric like a Tesla. For the most part, houses can be retrofitted for electricity, so they're not using oil or gas. That in fact we're having even right here in Rolla, they've already got solar farms here in Rolla. They're starting to find ways to put solar panels on houses. In fact, there's 4 experimental houses that was built. I think they were built like maybe 6 years ago as an experimentation to see how a house can run purely on solar energy. That my college here in town, the state-run college, it's now called S&T. It used to be called RMU, not RMU, UMR, University of Missouri Rolla. Big science and tech college. I'd like to see us not use fossil fuels anymore, which means basically ending the use of ending the use of coal, oil, gas, even plutonium. Which, yeah, I know if we stop using plutonium, that means no nuclear power plants, no nuclear missiles, nothing to use nuclear energy. Now, I'm not saying that we can find safer ways to use nuclear energy, but I don't see any safer ways of using fossil fuels. In fact, I think maybe it was Reagan, or was it Bush? It was one of the presidents during the 80s and early 90s that was trying to find ways to end the usage of fossil fuels. If you know which president, please correct me, because I don't remember. My mind is not exactly all that great today because of the way I feel. But life and all that fun stuff has been looking up and up lately, except for we're still dealing with things like Corona, our everyday health besides Corona. I'm happy about some of the things I've been hearing about Biden's new plans to get a task force set up to deal with Corona. That's great. The increased production of testing materials and the increased research into the virus and seeing how we can combat it. No, I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of hubbubaloo, but I'm more focused on some of the things that we need to deal with now, not only as a nation but as a world, as a global community. And the biggest thing that we need to deal with right now is the Corona pandemic. I think we just need to get all our heads together, get all the science, the medical community and whatnot to do their best to focus on finding a cure. I had heard a story yesterday that made me go, "Yay us!" Or not just "Yay us," but "Yay people." Um, some of the places that are having like huge issues with hospital space for the corona patients. Samaritan's Purse. Now I cheered for Samaritan's Purse because Samaritan's Purse was the group of volunteers that came to New York to help people who had issues with Hurricane Sandy. They came out and helped us. They came to our home and asked us if we needed help or would we accept their help to help us basically clear out the house, clean it up, tear down tear up the floorboards and the walls and whatnot that got damaged by the floodwaters. And they came with a small group of people. Of I think the two youngest that I remember being there were in their late teens. They were like 18, 19 years of age. And I think the oldest gentleman was about 60, 65. And they came in there, head to toe, gloves, masks, protective gear. Because we told them, if you want to come, and we'll accept your help, but let's just warn you, this is an older house. There's asbestos, there's mold, there's all kinds of nasty stuff. At least, I don't know if there's asbestos, but I know there's a lot of black mold and nasty stuff after the flood. It spread like wildfire. We were already having some minor problems in the bathroom, but they came in, masks, goggles, hair nets, gloves, work pants, and they just basically they found the water line and they just started ripping the wall. They were like making cuts along the water line, ripping the wall down, ripping out what little insulation was still in between the walls. They ripped up the floorboards. They basically ripped up the whole entirety of the inside of the house. Now that with the pandemic and whatnot, they've sent volunteer groups to various locations to build temporary medical housing for the people that cannot be fit into a room in the hospitals, as well as extra examination rooms and whatnot to get the people in, examine them. If they were examined in the hospital and said that they do have corona, they were given a place to be isolated from the rest of the community, basically. Even the rest of the other corona people. So, Samaritan's Purse is doing a lot of good work. I mean, they are associated and affiliated and parented by the Billy Graham Association. In fact, that's in the other room. They gave us a Bible, basically, as a gift. A Billy Graham Bible as a gift for, basically us. Now, I don't know how their workings or how they operate or what guidelines they operate by. The only guidelines that I saw that they operated by was basically the Word of God. A Good Samaritan, basically. Hence the title, Samaritan's Purse. Now, they didn't ask us for donations. They didn't ask us for any financial donations. I'm pretty sure that one of the biggest reasons why they probably didn't ask those that they were helping was because of the fact that most of the people they help are those people who are in need of help. So they didn't ask for any financial donations or anything like that. We did find a way to try to feed them while they were there. Whether we went to one of our local delis and ordered a 50-foot long, not a 50-foot long, I'll take that back, a catering party-sized hero. I don't know exactly how long they are in size-wise, but even their smallest one that you can get, which I'm trying to think of how big it is, probably about a 6-footer, is more than enough to feed, 20 plus people. I mean, they cut them into good size wedges, pretty, big size sandwiches once you cut it up. But I will say one thing about Samaritan's Purse that I did enjoy the most, besides the fact of their assistance to do what we would be taking forever to do with, or having to pay somebody to do, is the fact of that most of their community work is volunteer. They have, I'm gonna call them chapters because I don't know what else to call them, but they have chapters all over America. I mean, they've helped out with forest fire relief. They've helped out with various natural disaster relief. Um, Came to New York from, I mean, a lot of the people we talked to came from like Alabama or down south where they have hurricanes on a regular basis, to come up to New York and New Jersey to help out those who suffered damage or loss or whatnot due to Hurricane Sandy. It's the biggest natural disaster I've ever been in, or been involved in, I should say. I was involved because of the fact of the house that I was living in, my in-laws' house, was flooded. Good 5 feet worth of flooding. Luckily, we didn't have much loss, no life loss. We had a bunch of personal items lost, damage to a couple pieces of furniture that were, I don't want to say that they were poorly constructed, but because of the materials they were made out of, once they absorbed all that sea water, they were just deteriorating. I mean, I went to pick up one particular cabinet after we emptied out all the stuff from it, and the whole bottom section that was saturated in water literally just detached from the upper parts, and I just kind of went, nah, well, I guess that's going in the garbage. So I understand what they do for, I mean, after talking to them and whatnot, I understand what they do for their, not just for their community as, their home state, but to leave their home, to gather up a whole bunch of volunteers and leave their home state to go to a different state or different location to help out with those who are in need of help because of natural disaster is, one, it is biblical, because the Bible literally talks about going out and helping your neighbor. But it's also just one of those things where you go, okay, yeah, there's others in need. I have tools. I have time. Let's get together and go. That in fact, especially for the younger folks that are either college age or just getting into the work environment, to sit there and tell their supervisors of their jobs, hey, my church, my group, my Samaritan Purse group has been called to go to New York for a couple of weeks or more, to do volunteer work to help out those who had suffered a natural disaster. To basically have a job. Hopefully, they have a job that goes, okay, sure, no problem. Just let us know when you're coming back. We'll put you back on the schedule. I mean, that's not only is that undaunting to basically sit there and go, oh man, I'm gonna have to tell my boss that I'm gonna be going. I'm going with my volunteer group to help out those in need. It's like one of those. Ooh, you must have a very good boss or a very good job or whatever. But this is the time to basically. Excuse me, it's a combination of my throat and I'm trying not to get choked up. This is a time where we need to stop our petty squabbling over whatever. Whether it's a president, whether it's a local situation, whether it's just the fact that we have been under a pandemic that is causing all kinds of issues, whether it's interpersonal issues, whether it's issues with your neighbor, whether it's issues with your government, whether it's issues with the factor that your local magistrate has mandated wearing masks in public. We need to stop ignoring what's going on. We need to stop thinking that whatever is going on is a hoax, a fabrication by the government, a attempt to be controlled by the government. No, it's not. It's for the it's for the betterment of humanity. It's for the welfare of your neighbor. It's the welfare for yourself. It's the welfare of the world. We need to basically put aside all our personal issues, all our personal whatevers, and help each other out. And if helping each other out right now because you're in an area that does not have a need for volunteers or whatnot, it's just listening to the health department, listening to the government that's trying to make things better. I live in an area that we don't have a large number of people with corona or a overflowing hospital. What we have is a local government who is basically saying, we want you, we need you, we are requiring you to put a mask on when you go out in public or when you go into a public facility. They're not doing that to control us. They're not doing that to stir up issues. They're doing that because of the fact that they realize the masks have a 70 to 85 percentage of keeping everybody healthy. Now, to increase that percentage is all the other things. Wear the mask, sanitize, wash your hands. I don't want to sit there and try to go, okay, maybe what they need to do is tell us to stay home unless we don't need to go out, or unless we need to go out, I should say. Stay home unless you need to go out. Well, that's not effective anymore. They're finding out that there are people who are stay-at-home people who somehow mysteriously caught the virus. Well, that may be so, but the question needs to be is, what were they doing in their homes? Were they keeping their homes clean? Were they sanitizing? Were they washing their hands? And when they got product that came in from an outside source, were they making sure that after they brought the product in, they basically cleaned? Now, I'm not a clean freak, by all means. My house is not spotless. I can tell you my kitchen is never spotless because we're always in the kitchen. We're always working in the kitchen. My bathroom is not always spotless because of the fact that I go in there and I wash my hands and there's hair in the sink from trimming my beard or trimming my hair, because I do have a calcium deficiency in my scalp. There's flakes and dander and whatnot, on the counters. My floors are not spotless. You can see dust bunnies and particles and whatnot around the floorboards and whatnot because I don't always get to that part. My house is not immaculate, but I'm proud enough to say it's clean enough for guests for the most part. So it's like scientists have not figured out the exact rhyme or reason or how and why people who are self-quarantining get the virus. So it's one of those, like, it's really hard to determine what is the best course of action for protecting yourself. But the thing is, if the local government has basically mandated and put signs all over public buildings to wear a mask before going inside, why do you ignore it? Why do people ignore it? I don't get it. But anyhow, I want to make this short, and unfortunately I never know how to. Let me go ahead and read. If you stayed this long, thank you, first off. I try to keep as much political out because it seems to be giving people headaches. It's giving me headaches. So I'm ending. I'm done with the politics. I'm just trying to keep everybody advised of what I hear when it comes to, especially lately, the Corona ordeal, because I know a lot of people have been hearing it for a year and they're getting tired of it. Well, you know what? So am I. But the problem is, the more and more I see people ignoring the CDC's recommendations, let alone our government system's recommendations and rulings over the virus, I don't like getting sick. I don't like seeing other people sick. I don't like the idea of people getting sick, period. Um, Unfortunately, because of sins of the past, and I mean like ancient sins, Adam and Eve, we are now having to deal with the human condition. The problem is, I'm seeing more and more people who are taking our God given rights for granted. And I don't like that. I don't like seeing anybody taking anything, let alone being taken for granted. It bothers me. But anyhow, let me try to get this read correctly, and then we'll go on from there. Anyhow, this is Mark chapter 3, verses 5 and 10. Verse 5 says, He looked at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, Stretch out your hand. He stretched out his hand, and his hand was completely restored. Now, if I remember this part of Mark, Jesus had gone to a town, and the town had a massive group of people who had various diseases or ailments or disfigurements or things of that time that were uncurable, did not know how to be treated. And Jesus had been going from town to town to town to heal these people who had come down with these various diseases. And if I remember the story right, this particular story is about a man who his hand was gnarled up. He got it. It was either it was messed up from birth, or it was just he had a major accident and it got all gnarled up. And Jesus basically restored the hand. That's the second part of that verse. The first part about the factor of now, a lot of people used to say that Jesus never got angry. Well, according to Mark, he did. In fact, if Jesus never really got angry, why would he go into the temple and flip money changing tables in the temple? Because he got angry. But the factor of being distressed over people's stubbornness, well, I can understand that. Jerry gets angry over my stubbornness. I get angry over her stubbornness. I get angry at people who are stubborn and don't want to put masks on when they should be. We all have that thing that causes us to get upset and whatnot. The second verse that I accidentally read yesterday as verse 5, but it's actually verse 10, is, For he had healed many, so that those with disease were pushing forward to touch him. Well, I can understand that because, I mean, if Jesus came back to earth and started healing the masses, or started healing, let's say that he came to Earth and started back in or no, not even Israel. Let's say he started somewhere in South America and just worked his way up. I am pretty sure by the time he got to, let's say he started in Argentina and just worked his way up. I'm pretty sure by the time he got to Brazil or Venezuela, um, people would be literally running each other over just to get the healing that they needed or wanted. So the factor that back then everything was word of mouth, there was no telecommunication or computers or anything of mass communication. Um, so I'm pretty sure that somebody from one town ran to the next town and said, a healer is coming or Jesus is coming or whatever they want to, whatever title they want to use. Just to think of the factor that people from across the globe would try to find some way to get as close to him as possible. I'm not one to jump to any conclusions or anything like that because we only have the Bible to speculate, and we can only you know learn what the conditions of living were back then from science and archaeology and all that fun stuff. But the Bible has certain sections that talk about things that Jesus did that in those days were considered no-nos. One, the Sadducees and Pharisees basically turned their nose up every time they saw Jesus sitting with what they considered the low of the low. And back then, the low of the low were like prostitutes, murderers, thieves, tax collectors. Tax collectors were actually considered lower than prostitutes and murderers back then. Everybody hated the tax collector. Well, it's not much different nowadays. No, not very many people like the tax collector nowadays either. So that hasn't changed that much. But the factor that these people that Jesus was healing were people that, for the knowledge of medicine and the knowledge of the healers back then, could not be worked on, could not be fixed. There was no knowledge of how to deal with certain things. And back then, it was demanded that if you had leprosy, that if you were walking down the street, you had to yell out to the other people around you that you had leprosy, so they would avoid you. In fact, 9 times out of 10, most villages had a section of their village that was basically walled off, guarded off, warded off, however you want to put it. That they basically herded the lame, the sick, the lepers, those who basically were unfit to be around the rest of the population by their standards, including women who, during their period, they could not be in their homes. They had to be in a tent city, basically. Sounds sad, sounds bad, but that's because of the factor that back then, the idea of a woman going through her menstrual cycle was unclean and unhealthy, and the bleeding factor was bad juju. Of course, back then they didn't have the medicine technology to realize, oh, that's just normal, that's natural, that's part of a woman's monthly cycle. So the way they treated their undesirables, let's just put it that way, their undesirables, was appalling, horrid. I mean, just like, I couldn't even think about living back then when they were doing that, because the fact that every winter or every time my seasonal crud would start up, people would be looking at me sideways like, do we dare not have them around the rest of the population? Do we seclude them with all the other undesirables? Don't know. Of course, don't know how much healthier I would be back then compared to nowadays, because for the most part, most people were pretty healthy in average, unless they had a serious illness. But just think about it this way. In today's terms, all the undesirables, all those with major sicknesses, illnesses, diseases, whatnot, if we were to take all those people that we considered undesirable, and yes, we'd have to sit down and decide what's the difference between desirable and undesirable. But take all those people that we considered undesirable for whatever reasons, and herded them into a place, whether it's a secluded town or whatnot, with high walls and guard towers and whatnot. And no, I'm not talking about a prison, even though it would be a prison. I'm just talking about a city where these undesirables can do whatever they want as long as they stayed within those walls. Well, how many people would consider that just a no, that's just wrong. I'm one of those. There are plenty of people out there that people don't want to be around for whatever reason. Sexual orientation, religion, health, attitude, whatever. But the thing is, they're human beings just like the rest of us. Why would you treat this one human being that you have an issue with differently than those that you get along with? Why? There's no logical reason for anybody to be treated different than anybody else. I, for one, with today's modern day, medicines and knowledge and whatnot, would rather treat somebody who has an illness that can be treated. We have enough knowledge and enough people who research, explore, whatever, look at the different problems we have, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's diabetes, whether it's astigmatism, not astigmatism, is it astigmatism? When you have an eye problem? Health issues like that. We have been given not only a God-given right, but we have been given people have been given the spark of knowledge or some spark that makes them excellent doctors or excellent researchers or medical professionals or engineers. We are a curious lot, but we are also a foolish lot. Sometimes our curiosity gets us into trouble. Sometimes our curiosity gives us a Nobel Prize. What makes things easier for everybody, not just the medical professionals who have trained for 12 plus years to be these surgeons or doctors or whatnot, but the one thing that we all have problems with, because of the fact that we allow the negativity of the world to get us down or to get us into a rant or whatever. But we also have the capacity of compassion to work with every individual on the face of the planet, no matter what their skin, religion, or sexual orientation is. And it doesn't really matter their nationality, because you know what? Nationality is just a border. It's a line it's an invisible line surrounding a country or location to determine what your nationality is. And it's really hard for me when people ask me, well, where are you from? And I sit there and go, well, first off, what year? And second off, what do you mean by where am I from? Because if I'm going to answer it in a scientific way, I'm going to say, my mom. She bore me for 9 months and I came out. I came from her. Or I can go the nationality route. Well, I'm an American citizen, but I was born in a foreign country. Which most people go, what? Or I can just sit there and go the way I want to go now. I am a Earth citizen. I'm a citizen of Earth. I have no nationality because anybody from America wants to look back at their ancestral information, they'll realize, oh, my ancestors came from here, 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 here. I'm a mutt. So, what nationality would you claim? Because if you were to claim your ancestral nationality, it would be very difficult to do. Unless you can trace your origin, your first country you came from. So why do we have to claim a nationality? Why do we have to claim U.S. citizen, citizen of England, citizen of Germany, citizen of Botswana? Why? Why is that a necessity? Because a group of people back in biblical times built a tower that God was displeased by, struck it down, and all of a sudden all these different languages popped up because were originally speaking the same language. But Tower of Babel had to be built and got knocked down. We're all speaking different languages, and we just separated and became different nationalities. Why can't we go back to the way it was? Everybody starts speaking one particular language, and just calling ourselves citizens of Earth, human citizens. Anyhow, food for thought. I'm gonna go ahead and give. I thought I was gonna make this short. I couldn't. I don't know how to. Anyhow, if you enjoyed it, yeah, I just bit my cheek. Yeah, that's fun. If you enjoyed this vlog, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put it in the question comment box. If you're new and want to subscribe, you can click there's a little thumb or something like that down there somewhere, and then a bell will pop up, and click on the bell, and YouTube will let you know when I put in a new video. Until next time, God bless. Have a good day. Bye.